SWAT Kats The Radical Squadron was created by Christian and Yvonne Tremblay for Hanna-Barbera Cartoons Incorporated. Support the SWAT Kats Revolution Kickstarter by visiting SWATKATSRevolution.com. And remember to buy SWAT Kats DVDs at WBShop.com. This is a SWATKATS.info production.
First of all, it's great that Feral's Enforcer Sergeant finally has a name after all this time.
Yes, that is a good thing.
Sergeant Talon.
Yeah. I remember that now. Yeah, it's just, listen, it's a basic thing. It's easier a little bit to believe they're real if you kind of attach things like name identities and personality quirks and make them visually a little more interesting. You know, it's instead of, hey, you, right? It's better to say, hey, Talon, you know. Hey, I gave Feral a first name. You know, you did him first name, so.
Ulysses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of names, the Burger King joke was great. You named two Enforcer pilots Berg and King.
Oh, all right. Was that one of mine?
Was it Berg or Burge?
I have two friends that were ex-roommates named Bear Burge and Gary King, and they were ex-roommates of mine. So,
oh, I thought it was a Burger King joke.
Well, you know what? That's easy to believe, yeah, or easy to extrapolate. But no, it's Bear Burge and Gary King. They were both roommates of mine in the 80s.
And it also says that you apparently retroactively made them the two that are at the beginning of the past Master Always Rings Twice.
That might have been something Glenn did. Glenn was really good, better than me, and one of my little regrets is not paying more attention to what other writers are doing on the show, because I would have woven a better tapestry. Glenn was better at it, so he probably saw characters that I had done.
Well, it says they're from quote show 3.
Right. So he probably saw mine or read mine and decided those guys would work for mine. Now, the flip side of that is I had an original character for Destructive Nature for the bad guy, and Glenn,
Dr. Greenbox.
Right. And Glenn and or Davis said, well, let's make him Dr. Viper. I mean, he's already kind of this plant guy anyway, you know, this lizard. I went, oh, sure. That'll be easy. So, you know, it goes both ways. And I had a little origin beat for him of a guy being, it's almost like Swamp Thing's origin, a guy going in this experimental plant chemical and coming out like this weird hybrid plant animal, character. But you know, making him Viper it was good streamlining, you know.
Feral's sergeant is named Talon, but there's also a prison guard. Are they related, or is Talon just a common name in Mega Cat City?
Do the characters look all that much alike?
Not really.
No, it's probably just a name. It's probably just a name I kind of liked.
Oh, okay.
You know, and
I'm actually glad that you said that, because I thought it would have been weird if, like, because Sergeant Talon is not in that episode. It would have been weird if we had a relative of his.
Right. No, I think it's probably just kind of a name I liked. Was his name mentioned out loud in both of them?
Sergeant Talon's name only comes from the script, and storyboards, Talon the guard's name is mentioned out loud.
I like that name, and no one ever said it in dialogue, so I thought we'd use it in dialogue because it's cool to kind of have. As you know, a script is just a diagram. It's just a blueprint to make a cartoon, and in and of itself, it doesn't necessarily have to be an interesting read. Or
I think they're interesting reads.
Well, thank you. But there was a...
And even though the sergeant's name is not spoken out loud...
Yeah.
The script means he's got a name, so we're calling him that.
Yeah.
Totally. Encyclopedia.
Yeah, go for it. I'll give you another example. There was when we were doing Johnny Quest later, there was the first season team who were writing, and I personally strongly disliked the scripts on every level you can name. And one of the things was every script cover had some sort of literary quote on it. You know, blah, 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 Mark Twain, 19, you know, whatever. This guy is not trying to impress anyone but the person reading the script. So he's like, oh, I want to sound smart for the executive who might read this. it doesn't affect the show in one way. Like if you turn on the TV set, we're not going to have the Mark Twain quote or whoever quote. It's just the guy being a pretentious jerk. And I always felt like I'd read descriptions, one thing artists like about my scripts is it's very clear what I want them to draw. I don't use vague language or fancy language. I tell them this room is this square footage and it's decorated like this and da, 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 da. So that when they draw something, it's what I want them to draw. Where some of the Johnny Quest scripts is his opulent quarters evoke the bloated times of Nero. And it's like, wow, who's that for? That's for some executive who thinks he's smart, but it doesn't tell the artist what to draw. My job as a writer is to communicate information down the assembly line that makes the cartoon. So my job in describing things is so that the artist has no question about what he's supposed to draw or design. Or if I kind of want to leave him a little wiggle room, I'm a little more vague. But I look at the artwork eventually and maybe have a note or two, or talk to the guy. Like I would often talk to the prop guys and the character guys and the background guy and tell him what I had in mind. But one thing Drew Gentle always said was, I never had to ask you what you wanted, because it was really clear from your description what you were talking about. And a lot of times I'd give them photos and magazines and physical reference, especially in Johnny Quest. Like, here are pictures of Jakarta and here are pictures of Balinese puppet show and things like that.
Rock of Rages about the Czechoslovakian presidential palace. You said I think you even said you've attached photographs of it and to use that.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the names are very authentic Czech names. And I had a friend. I use past tense just because I haven't seen her forever, but she was actually a model from Prague, and her last name was Stasny. I went to her and just said, rattle off a bunch of Czech names, and I started writing, okay, Novak and Janosch and all these names. I said, those are real Czech names from someone who grew up there, in Prague. Drew Gentle was so good at drawing backgrounds exactly the way I described him. He was so good at it. There was another, I know it's SWAT Kats that we're talking about Johnny Quest, and I apologize, but there was a very Outer Limitsy type episode of Johnny Quest.
The first visitors from another dimension. Hang on a second, Doc. We don't know what they'll do.
And I wanted the music to be very Outer Limitsy, which is a strong component of that show. Mark Lungo is a big Outer Limits guy, too. He could tell you. But I got all the Outer Limits music I could and handed it to the composer, and I said, get as close to this as you can without getting sued, And I listened to the music of that episode. It's like, wow, it sounds like the Lost Outer Limits score, So specificity is really important to me. And I don't want to have flowery, ambiguous language. I want to have really direct, simple, crisp, clear, paints a picture in your head, a very specific picture.
Yes, I am the big Commander Feral fan.
She loves him.
You would have loved that other version of Cry Turmoil.
I wanted to see that other version of Cry Turmoil. I think my quibble with that is just I wouldn't have Feral turn back just because the SWAT Kats were winning, but I always think that he would probably be turning them back more for Felina than anything else.
I would have painted that particular thing in shades of gray. Things are definitely going against him, and he's a guy who's watching out for his best interest. And so he would flip. But I wanted to box him in such a tight corner that he kind of had no choice but to be a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think you're onto something. The addition of Felina may be being disappointed in him. I can't believe blah, blah. You go, no.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a little heartbreaking. And I think that is you almost gave me a story idea. Tightrope. But I would say that, I'd say that's a logical component of that story that I'll never get to do anyway. So, yeah, I think that's definitely one of the colors you could paint into that sequence. is his relationship with her.
Isn't Feral declaring that he doesn't deal with scum and mental urgency contradictory to your original idea for Cry Turmoil? You said Feral has a code he's rigid about, but having him genuinely turn to evil when he's down on his luck makes it seem less like I don't deal with scum and more like I don't deal with scum except under certain circumstances. And was your intent that Feral was bad all along, or that even the most morally upright person can go against their principles if enough misfortune is heaped upon them?
I would say the latter, and that's a great observation. But what I wanted to do was really push him and beat him up quite a bit before that, and like to kind of give him no way back, like really get drummed out of the core, and this, sexy girl comes along with his offer, and he's, and there's a big difference between Turmoil and the friggin' broken Metallic Cats too,
Sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of more making a deal with the devil, and
this is making the deal with the sexy devil.
well, listen. There's also that. Curse those beautiful cat ladies, and all that. But I think I was gonna make that one aspect of it. Remember, his position is really secure. At the end with the Metallic Cats, his position's really secure, and he can he's a chief of police and everyone loves him and and where the other one, I'm going to drum him out and humiliate him and beat him up and give him something to prove. And
it would have been worse if he were replacing with steel. That would have been like the final humiliation.
Yeah. I mean, that probably would have been what we would have done. Or even introduce somebody awful, just somebody plain awful. And one thing I always had in mind with that character is I wanted the audience to argue about whether or not he really turned.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that to be like when he
I could
flips back and he says, I was going to do it all along. And SWAT Kats go, I don't know if he was going to do it all along. I want the audience to ask that same exact question because it makes it a little more interesting. Listen, a good key to understanding Feral and his relationship with SWAT Kats, a really good one is J. Jonah Jameson. Because here's a guy, on one day he's this really righteous, crusading newspaper publisher who's all about the truth. He's sensationalist, but he's all about the truth and journalistic integrity and runs a tight ship, and he's not a pleasant guy running a really righteous newspaper. But he's got this bug about Spider-Man, right? That isn't necessarily fair. But if you look at it from another perspective, well, Spider-Man's a vigilante and and he just shows up at the party mad at him. So you can't say J. Jonah Jameson is a bad guy. You can say he is an adversary. Absolutely, Feral has a point and a legitimate point of view, and he's really good at his job, except under these weird, extraordinary circumstances that luckily happen on a weekly basis.
Feral does have a point. The SWAT Kats often do cause pretty much as much, almost sometimes even more damage than the bad guys that they fight.
Absolutely, Feral has a point and a legitimate point of view, and he's really good at his job, except under these weird, extraordinary circumstances that luckily happen on a weekly basis. But
regular criminals, the enforcers can trounce no problem.
Right, and do, and the SWAT Kats aren't stopping those threats or anything. I mean, remember the enforcers are cops, but they're also the military. It's in a way like the Federation. They're explorers, but they're also the military. They're scientists, but they're also the Marines, right? The way that universe is set up is a little different than reality, and combining certain weird things that normally aren't combined.
I love that they're so used to giant monsters that the Enforcer Lab has a table big enough for that giant frog. Right. That's Glenn. That was funny as hell. I remember laughing at that idea. And he said, yeah, after 2 or 3 weeks, you're kind of like, yeah, I guess we better kind of
be prepared for further events like this. It's like watching Pacific Rim. They're kind of like ready, right?
All he does is see like a couple of like bells on the view screen and says, "I'd stake my job that Dr. Viper did this because who else would it be?" It's like, gee, I wonder who's behind the giant mutated monsters this time.
Right.
I don't think the house is going to pay out very heavily for that bet.
Right. So it's all in good fun.
Here's one going back to Feral again, like Feral and Felina. Just like, is it a warm relationship or is it kind of strained?
I'd say it's warm, but it's a little tough love, kind of thing. The cat world version of Thanksgiving, they're probably laughing and telling stories to each other. I don't think there's a tension. I would say, I'm going to say it now, and you can write this down, is that she's an enforcer because she admires her uncle, and as a little girl thought, man, he's so cool, I want to be like him.
She has a completely different view on the SWAT Kats than he does, though, and I think that's the source of the strain.
Yeah.
That and the fact that much like Chance Furlong before her, she has a little bit of a problem of listening to her superiors.
Right. Well, certainly, listen, you're proud of somebody if they take a strong interest in something, like really strong interest in civics, but their politics are not the same as yours, okay? And so there's this mixture of emotions. So, well, I'm glad you're, making an effort and then this stuff matters to you, but boy, I don't like the way the choices you made about this and that.
There's actually a funny example that I saw in some Star Wars fan documentary that was made where this father who was very into Star Wars, he liked, he wanted to get his son into it who wasn't really interested in it. And then he finally convinces him to try it out, but he winds up being a stormtrooper while his father was a Jedi, and he wasn't particularly thrilled about that, but he thought, well, he's kind of in the thing as a whole, so I guess that's
at least he likes it. That's funny. Once upon a time, I was going out with this girl, and she's really in the next generation because she kind of got into Star Trek in her 20s, and I kind of got into it when I was a little kid when it was first on, when I was like 5, the original show. And she doesn't kind of get the original show, and I kind of don't get the new stuff. And I was complaining to a mutual friend. I was like, oh man, she likes it, but she likes the wrong one, kind of thing. And my friend said, dude, you're a guy, trust me on this, you're a guy that needs, whoever your girlfriend is, she needs to like Star Trek to be successful in the relationship, so don't be too damn picky about which version she likes. Be grateful that she likes any version, and I was like, yeah, you got a good point, so bring on the tap dance and date episode,
Feral never learns that Felina's alive in One Strikes Mutilor. He gets that lovely moment when Talon hands him the busted bazooka, and he's like, let's kick those aliens out of our atmosphere, but he never finds out that his niece is still alive.
Well, on screen, we only have, 22 minutes?
You could have sacrificed the Thunder Truck sequence. That went nowhere.
Dude, they said put that truck in. I did not want to put and it's a cool truck and a cool design. I did not want to put a truck into an episode about UFOs and flying saucers.
I applaud you for not putting that truck into space.
Yeah. And
I could stomach the Thunder Truck if Succubus had been made and it had come back. Therefore,
that would have been fine.
I think the funniest thing in Destructive Nature to me is Dr. Viper's really awful gardener disguise.
Right. I think that's kind of funny too, because he's got such a weird body shape anyway, and his coloring is really weird. A level of the show where it's a younger audience than Johnny Quest, so we definitely play some stuff for cheap laughs, and that's one of them.
Since we're talking about Destructive Nature, that was your first script, right?
My first professional sale. Yes.
So how
written in 2 days.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit more of the backstory behind that particular one, because I don't know if we've really ever spent a whole lot of time talking about that one.
Like I said, I'd done pitches for Next Generation. Davis was aware of that, was aware that I had an interest in writing. And this is a very important thing to say about Davis was I never asked him if I could write for that show. He came up to me and he said, I know you're interested in writing, so I would like you to be in the development readings with Glenn, myself, Jim Stenstrom, was the director and also the kind of head character designer, and the Tremblay brothers. I want you to be in all those meetings. So while we're developing the show, you're going to know the show as well as anybody in the room, including the creators of the show. And throw in ideas if you have them and just be part of the brain trust. So I was in those handful of meetings, 5 or 6 meetings. And my probably big contribution was what the two guys had as a side gig, because they were just, I think, garbage men at one point. And I said, no, they work in a salvage yard for government parts. So that way they can cobble jets and missiles and things together. So that's my little check, on the show. It's my idea in the show. And
the garbage men characters became Burke and Murray. I think.
Yeah. So
I wish it stayed around because I know no one else likes them. I think they're hilarious.
Hey, dude, for me I wrote them in just so I could meet Mark Hamill. So he's so nice. He's such a nice guy. So Davison was interested in that, and after all those meetings, he said, "So if you're interested in pitching an episode, let me know." And I said, "Of course I am." So I came up with like 4 different ideas, and they were each maybe a paragraph long. And I had lunch with him. We set aside a lunch, and we went there, and I pitched all 4 ideas, and he said, "You know what? Any of those would make a fine episode." And I think definitely Crystal was one of them. Destructive Nature obviously was one of them. I don't know if the one was one of the Metallic Cats ones, but it was a little different. I thought later on when I got that far, I had a better Metallic Cats idea after seeing Jim Stenstrom's Metallic Cats episode. I thought like, oh no, there's a better way to use these guys. And I even forgot what the 4th one is, but he said all 4 of those are good. You pick the one you like the most and write it. And if that goes well, maybe you'll get to do more, the other ones. And that's the kind of faith he showed to me. And over that weekend, I wrote Destructive Nature. I did an outline during the week. And he beat up the outline a little bit, like made the character into Dr. Viper and things like that. And then I just took those notes and I wrote the script. I didn't resubmit an outline or anything. I just, okay. And I took the piece of paper with the red notes on it. And I just went home and wrote the script with that and brought it in Monday. And then Glenn, being the story editor, went through it and made some adjustments, maybe added a few little jokes here and there and tightened it up a little bit. And because he's a professional, I'm brand stinking new at this. And that's kind of the process for that first script. I was surprised how little it got changed. And Davis read it and he came out and said, yeah, you can write another one if you want. And I did Crystal, and then by that time,
Chaos and Crystal is definitely a favorite of mine.
Yeah, I think that suffers from just animation that wasn't up to snuff for most of them, but I like the story though.
Along with Giant Bacteria, Bride of the Pastmaster, and Enter the Mad Cat, really, 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 really just beg for Mook's animation.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was pretty happy with that. But listen, if you read the script, the idea is that it was set in the desert, and the equivalent of the Grand Canyon is covered in crystal, like fenced in, so they're in a tube. So the whole canyon is turned to crystal, and then it's roofed over. So the SWAT Kats are flying literally through like a tube of crystal, and light is coming in, and it's just refracting and making all these rainbow beams of light, and the jet is like green, red, orange, and flickering through. It's just stuff.
And it just looks so clunky in the finish.
And they never animated that, or never even wanted to animate that. And I thought, so I have all these visual ideas. And Shard himself looked like a big clunk of green glass. And I really saw him as something that was always refracting colors and things,
I never knew until looking at the model sheets that he actually goes through like 5 or 6 different stages.
Yeah.
Similar to Zed later on in Unlikely Alloys, which seems to be kind of a thing of yours, is that the main antagonist will go through subtle changes as the story progresses.
Yeah, well, it just keeps it visually interesting. I mean, I was told on Unlikely Alloys, it's like, again, I was sort of assigned that idea. You know, it's an idea I pitched, and they said, no, you should do that idea. But listen, you got to keep it down to like 5 versions. You can't, like, he can't be different in every scene because we have to do full turnaround models for every scene. So keep it down to 5 things, and we're going to cheat. We're going to cut away and cut back, and he's phase 4 and da-da-da-da. So, and that was fine. I mean, I made those phases very distinctive from one another.
Now, with regards to greenboxing Chaos and Crystal,
there was just a name I kind of liked that was originally going to be the villain in Destructive Nature, and it's more like, it's like litter green. It's like a litter box. You know, his name is like litter green, is a type of like kitty litter, and box is referring to, you know, litter box. So that's, the name was just kind of saying that.
That wouldn't be the only cat poop joke that show did. David Litterbin is literally David SHIT box.
Right. So, there's only so many things you can do with it. Glenn was a lot better at coming up with those names, you know.
Yeah, like Dr. Enzyme.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why Glenn, should have kept him around longer. You don't waste a character with a fun name like that. That brings me to my final Chaos and Crystal question.
Sure.
Warden Meese.
Yes.
I hate Mises to pieces, and Meese goes to pieces. Please tell me that's actually the origin of that name.
No. His first name is Cyrus, so his name is Siamese, like a Siamese cat. Just a happy accident. I don't mean to disappoint you. And I love me some classic Hanna-Barbera. Oh, my friend Chris, well, he was the guy who did Mutilor's assistant, Trag. He does a really good Mr. Jinx. I hate that Mises to be. He can really do him. But he's like a professional voice actor and things. But holy crap, can he do that voice. But I'm sorry, no, it's just Siamese. I thought that was kind of a... That's what that is.
Well, my final question, and I guess this is my most important question.
Uh-oh.
Do you feel...
The answer is Capricorn, but I don't believe in any of that.
Feel Viper was toned down from his appearance in the giant bacteria. He seems quite comedic throughout Destructive Nature, and it struck me as a somewhat dramatic shift in characterization. Were there discussions between you and the other writers about toning him down after how sadistic he seemed in his debut? Because he was quite nasty in the scene where he mutates Morbulus into the bacteria monster.
Right. Well, it sounds a little weird, but I'm going to say that if there's anything kind of jokey, it's probably something Glenn did. So he might have actually written both those facets you're talking about. He wrote the first one by himself, and maybe he made mine a little jokey because as we move along with the show and we see how things play and how they sound in recording.
Yeah, because I know that episode was kind of an infamous one.
Yeah, Bacteria was sort of intense, and I think we all collectively decided to back down a little bit from that because it's kind of a younger show. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, all these things evolve and shift a little bit. No, the difference between Glenn and I writing that character is more like I think he wrote kind of what you're talking about both times.
Towards the end of season 2, you were trying to move back to that intensity because Succubus in particular is a very dark episode with a lot, like with the scene where Katrina's henchmen actually dump a body in the swamp and there's descriptions of drained corpses and stuff like that. So it seemed like that maybe having done like a full season and another season, you guys are starting to feel more comfortable with doing more serious elements by the time those scripts were written?
Again, that might be more of a question for Glenn. I just sort of If there was a shift in tone in my stuff, I wasn't really aware of it or doing that deliberately. It might have just been the evolution of writing them, and seeing how they air and saying like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to do a little more of that, or a little less of that, or what have you.
That's really all the questions I had, and you answered them very well, very much, not always to my satisfaction.
Well, not to your expectation. I know, but Siamese says, you don't want me to lie, do you? You want to, even when the truth is unpleasant, you must hear it.
Well, I guess I do have one more question. Are you mad at Glenn Leopold for killing Turmoil off at the end of Turmoil 2? Now, I know the episode was never made, but I know that you really, really love Turmoil, and Glenn, why? Why, Glenn?
Okay, I think, first of all, Glenn didn't necessarily kill her, okay? Secondly, it read really well to me, as a good episode and as a good use of a character I created. It's sort of, I had a little ownership with her, and I was really happy with how someone took that ball and ran with it. Overall, like I said, this would make a good episode. Too bad they didn't make it.
Well, and I guess it does make sense that if she was going to die, it would be by her own hand.
Yeah.
Because it's the avalanche by the grenade she throws that sweeps her off the cliff. I just thought it was surprising that she, and I know that she could survive. It would be no, that's ideas because I Turmoil 3, the redemption,
right? Well,
or something like that.
Because
I have an idea.
Listen, they're not dead unless you see the body. That's just sort of a big rule.
And then you put them in robots.
That gives me hope for Dr. Zyme then.
Right. Yeah, they're never dead unless, there's a funeral. I mean, if a guy was turned into crystal and tipped over and shattered, he's way dead. If they get this thing going again, believe you me, I'm gonna go into the trunk and see what I can resurrect.